8 o'clock, you're listening to Flow FM 92.7, your Go With The Flow radio station. Today, Tuesday, the 6th day in the month of May, 2025. Welcome to the headline news analysis, and this is the time where you have the chance, the opportunity to discuss, debate, and talk about some of the big stories that were brought to you at 7 o'clock on the headline news. Or maybe you're flipping through the pages of any of the national newspapers, and then you want to react to any of the story that's catching your attention, or you want to pass comment on them, or you just want to amplify some of your thoughts on some of these national trending headlines, or please feel absolutely free to come on the headline news analysis. I am Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey.
And we're joined live this morning by Nicholas Nwarunoye. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
All right, we're ready to talk about some of these big stories. Please note that you have 1 minute, 60 seconds to pass comments and to react to any of the stories. You can also join us via WhatsApp 0807 777 9927. You can call that number as well, 0807 777 9927. Please call us on that number, and you can message us on WhatsApp on the same number. Views to be expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7, but solely as expressed by Nicholas this morning. But we'll try and keep the conversation as much as possible to be very civil. Let's get right into our conversations.
All right, before we dive into the conversation this morning, this is to remind you that we're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook this morning. All you have to do is search for Flow FM 97 on any of these apps, and then you can get in on the live action happening in the studio right now. All right, this really big story from JAMB this morning. We have the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has revealed that over 75% of candidates who sat for the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, scored below 200. Now, out of nearly 2 million registered candidates, only about 420,000 of them scored 200 and above, while less than 1% surpassed the 300 benchmark.
That is quite sad. And even, when you look at that figures, you see that the number of people that even fail to show up.
Yeah, we have about 71,701 candidates were absent.
Can you imagine? 71,000 people fail to show up. And why would they show up when you fix an exam at 6 a.m.? And
Would that be the major reason for this poor performance?
It could be one of them. It could be a major contributing factor.
Oh, okay.
They paid money. How much is JAM now anyway? About 10, at least the very least you can pay to register is 10,000 naira.
But I think I watched a video of the JAM registrar at a particular center in Lagos, and he was speaking to a young student, a young Nigerian student, and then asked, how much did you pay? How much did your school register you? And I think the kid was saying something below.
How? But the cost for exam
from the JAM
the cost for the exam is about 3,000 or thereabout. But you have to pay to do mock and the rest of them. That is what they use to service all those vendors, all those people they outsourced the CBT centers to. You understand? You need to understand some of this. The tragedy of the whole thing is that I listened to Professor Ishaq Oloyede doubling down on the excuse that any sensible person will know that exam starts at. But what of the registration process and all those things that we are talking about? Because everything, examination, you have to be cleared before you sit for an exam. So that all those process of clearing you understand, is part of sitting for exam. So there is no need to believe. There is no need to try to dribble the public on that matter. So, in my opinion, I think it was a colossal failure. Yeah, it's not about. Sometimes when something is wrong, we should see that things are really wrong. And again, not meeting 200 benchmark. For almost how many 70%? Over 70% thereabout. Yeah. So that tells
75.
you 75%. That is huge. So it simply tells you is either another thing is perhaps with the CBT thing there could be an inhibition. Most of those kids could have been exposed to computer-based testing for the first time. You see that was why JAM instituted the mock so that you get used to it before. But I think this is just my opinion. I'm just hazarding a guess that it's probably when they got there they froze. Because while I was in school in those days, there is this thing, there is this course we took in language. It's called error analysis. You understand? There is a theory that exam is not the best way to test competence. There are a lot of factors. Yeah, there are a lot of factors that could affect you: the environment, your psychological state. You understand? Then of course other issues too. But I'm picking out those two. Taking you to a very strange environment could discombobulate it. Can discombobulate a candidate. You understand? So, as it is right now. That what it simply means, the interpretation is that JAM did not provide a conducive environment for that exam. That was why those kids failed.
Nicholas, let's compare, the pass rates for the UTME conducted last year and that of this year. And then we can see maybe reasons why maybe there's an improvement or there is a decline.
Okay, let's see.
Now, about 1.9 million, sat for the exam last year in 2024. 80,000 of them were absent. A total of 1.9 sat for the examination, and said the result of 1.8 candidates have been released. Now, the registrar noted that 8,401 representing 0.5% of candidates scored 300. Now, if you compare that to the 2025, that's 1% of them scored 300 and above.
Okay.
And in the examination, the maximum scores of at UTM is 400. He said 77,070 representing 4.2% scored 250 and above. And that 439,974 representing 24% scored 200 and above. Now, if you compare that to that of this year, what you see is from the examination body, it says 2 million sat for the examination this year.
That is more.
That is more than that of last year.
Okay.
And then 420 scored 200 and above.
Okay, that means, is it more or less?
Of course, definitely less than what we had last year.
So,
now, while less than 1% surpassed the 300 mark, like maybe a little bit of improvement as to what we
had
recorded last year. Now, shouldn't we be getting better? If you look at this,
of course we should be getting better.
That of last year appears to be better than this year.
That is it. That's the point. You see, but I think, why there was outrage. Why there was outrage was because, it appears as if the arrangement was a bit too arbitrary this time around. So parents really had to cry, especially given the circumstance that we find ourselves, the insecurity and all those things. You understand? That's why, So I think they double down rather than, looking at those reasons why you had those failures and work on them. JAM did not do that.
All right, let's get this call. Sorry to bother you. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Toyin. I'm calling from Taiwan.
All right, Toyin from Taiwan. It's good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank God we had a discussion yesterday. That is comparison with what it used to be in the 60s and what it is now. And I remember Nicholas rightly mentioned the fact that now we have a lot of schools, but what is the quality of education they are churning out? This is one of the reasons we have the kind of failure we have had in Japanese here. We have so many people in school, but what kind of education are they getting? So it will reflect in the results of the examinations. So that is one. Secondly, I'm sorry to say, the headship of JAM is always on the defensive rather than accepting failures when people give appraisals and they give genuine complaints. You see, like the timing of the exam itself, 6:30 a.m., it's fine. You said, no, you advise them to come by 6:30 a.m. so that they can do accreditation and whatsoever. But for God's sake, even in offices that you have to clock in, you have to clock in. So it's not, and your work starts at so time. You don't arrive at work at 6:30 a.m. Preparing students for examination has to do with some psychology as well. You see, when you have to leave your home for 6:30 a.m., you will never have a sound sleep. That is the truth. Because your mindset is towards making sure you leave home or you get to where you're going by 6:30 a.m. So at intervals, you always wake up. This will affect the psychology of the student that's going to sit for an exam. You see, there are a whole lot of things that is affecting our educational system. But unfortunately, we don't always want to accept facts and appraisals. Rather, we always want to defend what we are doing that we feel is right. Rather than take it, you're starving the people. when they raise concerns, you need to sit down and look at them and see at ways how you can correct this. Nobody is infallible. You get it? So for us to get it right, we need to look at what quality of education are these students getting and how are we preparing them for the examination.
Yeah.
God bless you.
All right, thank you a
very
lot. So, quickly before I was just going to ask Toyin, but anyways, he will be listening to this. But let's quickly compare. The old jam that we knew, that most of us wrote, and then the new computer-based testing and all. If we do a little bit of analysis and testing, do you think the standard dropped? Honestly,
I think it's the standard of education that dropped.
Okay.
Yeah. You see,
the standard of testing of the examination is still the same.
I think with this CBT, putting it online removes the human element that brings about errors.
Okay.
Let us not make any mistake about that. But I equally think that while you are trying to upgrade the system of testing, you understand, there is a need to put in a lot of factors. Make sure that candidates that are coming are given fair, a conducive environment where they can write exams. You have to take into cognizance the people you are really testing. How many of them are computer literate?
Exactly.
Exactly. Because, you have computers being introduced in school, but how many really have computers? How many have a lab, The other day, there was an argument recently, between a state governor in the southwest and a former governor. The former governor is a presidential candidate, over somebody not building schools. That when he was a governor, he didn't build schools. That why is he talking about education now? And whereas, the person that has been spoken about, rather than focus on building schools was reforming.
Sorry to bother you.
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. My name is Shitta from Songo.
Shitta from Zongo.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Good morning to you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, my comment is that, you see, yesterday you were discussing, are we better off 60s? The answer is that we are not better off 60s. Because when you have a failure system, it affects everything. And people tend to use global advancement as Nigeria growth. It is not. Even if you are in the Shitta country now, you still see the impact.
All right, it's public. It's Mr. Shitta. We should be mindful of choice of words. It's morning radio. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
All right, thank you very much.
About that. You see, this general failure shows that something that is wrong with our system. Because the same kids that we are talking that they fail massively, when they now cross to abroad, you discover that they become the best in their system over there. And it's high time for us to know that we are not growing. We are only comparing the administration with the administration. And Adeyemi against, and we not get it right since all this while. So it is high time for our leaders to sit tight and think about how we want to move this country forward. Because now, if you look at this, it's affecting everything, virtually everything. Thank you. That is my comment this morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shitta from Zongo.
Like I was saying, if you recall, that same, state used to be in 26th position, but in just a very short while, we were able to move to, one of the first 5 in the country. You understand? And without even building new schools. You understand? What the man simply did was to reinforce the quality of education in the school. Buy computers, partner private sector players. You understand? It's a critical aspect that is missing in our educational system.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, Danielle?
Yes, good morning to you.
It's Tony once again.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, I heard what Danielle was about asking me. And I just want to put, I want to give him a start. GSS learning is about the oldest school in Paris.
Quite true.
It was established in 1914. Please, can you take a tour to GSS learning and do an evaluation of how many students have access to computer in that school before we start talking of some other schools? You see, we are raising the bar of examination. But we are not raising the bars of the kind of education these students get. How do they pass? You see, for those students that are passed, if we can do the census, you see that most of them went to private schools.
Mm-hmm.
You will notice that most of them passed because of the passing from help of their parents putting into making sure they are well prepared for that examination. The bulk of the students that failed this exam are possible from the public schools. We need to face the fact the kind of education we get from the public schools are nothing to write about. As I'm driving, I can see some students going to school, some primary school students. See them go into their classes and see what kind of education are they getting. Those who are teaching them, what is their background? People get into teaching because they just want a means of survival, not because they are trained to teach. We used to have the teachers' colleges. Where are they today? It used to be the foundation for teachers. Where are the teacher colleges today? The colleges of education today have become a dumping ground. Once you can't get admission to Poly or University of Illinois, they don't know. You just go and try College of Education. It is not because the person wants to be a teacher, really. These are the fundamental problems. Because of this country.
Thank you, Toyin.
Thank you very much.
Well, we have quite a number of issues to raise
exactly.
from what Toyin has said. If you look at that, it's talked about. If you take a statistics of some of this, number of students that have passed this examination, you see that a higher number will probably come from the private school.
Yeah.
But again, we complain of the quality of teachers that go into some of these private schools that they are not even qualified enough.
The thing is this. Let me tell you what the difference is. In the private school, there is more supervision, proper supervision. You don't work well, you get fired easily. But it doesn't happen in the civil service. In fact, you see, I had a conversation with a secondary school student, a teacher, some time ago. And I asked him, because I was trying to make a choice. He then told me that, look, go for a private school. I have a master's in education. And I'm in the government. But I can assure you that when you have over 80 to 100 students in a class, how do you supervise them? You understand? How do you supervise 80 students, 80, 100, even more effectively in a class? How do you mark them? How do you test them? So, you see, that is the problem. So, there was this idea I muted, at the inception of AE's administration.
Sorry again to botch you, Nicholas. Right. Let's get this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Uh-oh. All right. Please go ahead, Nicholas.
I was thinking that, rather than spend humongous amount of money to build new structures, why not upgrade the ones that you have? Then if it means you have to shed some of this to schools, private schools who have proper structure, shed them, prorate each of there's some of these teachers that are surplus to requirement, you turn them to zonal inspectors.
All right.
And private schools. You understand? So that you can monitor. You can use suburb money. There is a way you should be able to do that.
Use that. All right, let's get another call. Hello, good morning. Good morning to you.
Kenny calling from Tanke.
Could you say that again, please?
This is Kenny calling from Tanke.
Kenny calling from Tanke.
Yep.
All right, please go ahead.
I just want to make my own submission concerning the jump issue that we're discussing about. Just like the last call agreed, and he said, he has already spoken my mind. Just to enumerate some things. You see, my wife is a teacher, and she works in a government school. When she brings scripts home to mark, in a class, she brings a script of more than 300 students to mark. Now, in a private setting, even you as a presenter, can you deep down in your mind, if you have a child now and you want to enroll a child in school, you prefer the child goes to a private school than a government school. That's to tell you how bad our system has gone in this country. And we have friends abroad. If you ask them schools, where most of them are going, they'll tell you government schools. And they are doing well. True. And they even rep it more than private schools. But why is that in our country, the government schools have become a dumping ground? The government school has become a place where a teacher is going there and she or he carry beans down to the classroom for the students to pick out stones. Why will the government school point to a place whereby you see their students jumping through the fence by 10 o'clock just to go to class? And every now and then, we hear the budget of this country from the state, from the federal level, education, so percent. Where is the percentage going to? See, the truth of the matter is that in this country, we are so sectional. We have where our priority lies. And the priority lies where can favor the man in the brother. In as much that the kids of the elite, of the rich, so-called rich, are not in this public sector, this thing will continue to continue. And again, JAMB, fixing an exam for 6 o'clock, for 6:30 a.m., in a right sense of mind, if I'm to sit for exam by 6 a.m., if I'm not in that center a day before that exam, and I have to travel a journey, even 30 minutes journey to that exam, psychologically, I'm unstable. Psychologically, I'm unstable. So a lot of factors to contribute to this thing. JAMB, the system they are bringing, is not a system that is right for this country, that is right for these kids. It is not right. And the government in their own setting should please revisit some issues concerning the educational sector. You can't continue to make an engineer a commissioner of education. It won't work.
Okay, thank you.
I was once a graduate of college of education. I know how decayed that system is. I'm not proud to use the certificate anyway.
Thank you a lot. Thank you. We need to give others a chance to join in the conversation as well. So we really do appreciate your contribution this morning. Well, quite a lot of issues to raise on this. Over 1.5 million, 75% of UTME candidates scored below 200. What becomes their fate? Or my colleague?
Yeah, and to just add to that question, as part of the report as well, we have JAMB disclosing that 40,000 underage candidates were granted special permission to sit for this exam, but only a fraction met the benchmark for extraordinary performance. Now, just a fraction of that. So what qualified 40,000 of them to be able to sit for JAMB if they were not, up to the standard or up to the age for it?
It goes back to, the conversation on
the age
limits to be able to qualify for this exam.
Because imagine a 13 or a 14-year-old waking up at 5 and traveling such long distances already.
Of course, you are putting them at a disadvantage. You see, whichever way you argue it, you're going to have your point. But you see, we are talking of global best practices. You understand? If you have to say the rule is the rule, then you shut out a lot of very brilliant people that can contribute so much to Nigeria, the growth of Nigeria. If you say, okay, it must be 16, and that's it. You can have people that by 12 they're already mature. You have it. It's happening now. You understand? So, there are special ways of, you look at their grades. You look at recommendations and things like that. So that is how you determine whether those kind of candidates can really sit for the exam. You understand? And for me, until JAMB is able to clearly demonstrate that the circumstance under which they wrote those exams shouldn't be factored in, I still insist, and I'm going to continue to insist, that they made it possible for a lot of people to fail. You understand? That is just my point. Because, rather than accepting, they've been doubling down, on that obvious faux pas, All
right. Let's move away from this conversation and quickly touch another story before we have to round off on the analysis this morning. The federal government has stopped ministries, departments, and agencies from buying foreign goods or services that are already available in Nigeria unless they get a written approval from the Bureau of Public Procurement. And now they're saying that this is part of a new plan called the Renewed Hope Nigeria First policy, which was approved by the FEC. And this is just, we have the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, saying that this policy is a major step towards making Nigeria more self-reliant.
It's a fantastic plan, but that is not the first time we've had something like that. You see, Nigeria has never been short of ideas in terms of how to lead the economy.
Implementation is our issue.
Implementation and policies of assault, inconsistencies in politics. You see, you have one coming, and he throws the other policy away and starts. So there is that policy inconsistency. Now look at it from this angle. There has been a lot of argument about federal government reducing tariff on edibles, what people eat, so that there can be food security. You understand? But there is a converse, argument that you are disempowering farmers, who put a lot of, because you are subjecting to unfair market practice, because those who bring in these cheap foods, were able to produce it at a cheaper cost, so they can flood your market and make the locally produced ones that are produced under expensive, So it impoverishes the farmers. You understand? So, but then, you see, like I said, consistency in policy is what really helps. You understand? I sincerely hope they are able to, maintain that, because it's a very good idea. A situation where a ministry goes to Dubai to buy furnitures for offices, when you have so many furniture designers in the country.
A lot of them around.
You're talking of, going to buy a fabric, when you can, there was a story, somebody told me, Russia 2018, Nigerians went there and, they saw one of Nigeria's jersey.
It was one of the best jerseys around the world, well produced.
The Russians asked if they could get it. That person placed a call to Abba. They said, how many do you want? They said they want 90,000. The person placed a call to Abba. Within 3 days from Abba to Russia, they got.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is the kind of capacity they have. Yeah. You understand? So now we need this kind of policies. You understand? We need more of this, and it has to be consistent, and support base must be given to the people who produce locally, so that they can produce cheaply too.
Let me take it back a little bit. Okay. I recall under former President Jonathan. And then I recall under former President Muhammadu Buhari as well too, initiatives like this. First, we started with former President Jonathan. We had the Buy Nigeria First, where we had the cassava bread,
exactly,
and all of those conversations. But how long were we able to sustain? Because again, if we say these policies or these ideas are good, how do we sustain them? How do we ensure that, well, the same ministry and department that the government is saying is not the one still going and breaking the rules?
You see, look, how was India able to how did they manage the kind of economic success they have? It's because every politician that comes on board understands one thing: India first. You understand? That has always been the problem with Nigerian leaders. You see, he will undermine his own country just to spite the other political, political opponent. That has always been our problem. I recall that a retired surgeon once told me that when the Prime Minister of India, needed to have a surgery
in the ear,
and the only expert was in the US, New York. They said no, that their president is too big to go to New York to go and do that surgery. They had to bring the expert into India. Then other Indian doctors around him studied him, and that is the beginning of India's medical, that is their power in the medical revolution. These are some of the things we need to start doing.
Do you think there's a fault on Nigerians as well, knowing that, okay, even when these policies are being made, Nigerians are like, oh, well, things that are locally made or locally sourced are
of less value.
Less valued than, getting it or sourcing it from somewhere else?
Maybe in the past. But right now, Nigeria will settle for anything poor, anything cheap. That is the simple truth. We will settle for anything right now. The bulk of Nigerians will settle for local rice.
Hold on. Okay. Well, let's take it back a little bit, because if you go back to the 60s and the 70s, it was more or less like, it was a show of if you could wear foreign attire. It was a show of if you had foreign utensils in your house. And then that tradition has continued to today.
And I feel like it's even worse off now.
No, I don't think so. Maybe you haven't been looking at the number of traditional wears that you have now.
Okay.
You understand? People like me, I like dressing smart because I don't drive much. So wearing a traditional wear will make it a bit difficult for me
to move around.
You understand? You hardly have guys of my age wearing the kind of jeans and t-shirts.
Well, my generation.
I will take you back a little bit. There is a politician in this country who built a house and then said everything in this house is imported.
Of course. We know the politician.
All right, let's leave the conversation right there.
And I would say most people.
One out of many.
But we can't really say it's one out of many, because
the
statistics, we can't sit here and draw.
Even when you're talking about like outfits.
Have you seen IMF figures on the poverty level? Poor people can't afford imported things.
but they still want it. There's that desire to want it as well.
You
And
know-
so even when they're not able to get it, they would rather go for these important things than get it locally because they feel like it gives them a,
sense
like
of
a
belonging.
It's a bad habit, and
Okay.
you drop
so
bad
the
habits.
Nigerians they're also contributing to these things.
No. You
It's
see,
not
look,
just
you see, when you expose them to it, deny them those things, let them go for local. Over time, they get used to it.
All right.
All right,
let's
well,
have
our
the
time is
conversation
fast
here.
spent. Our time is fast spent. We have to round off on the analysis this morning, but we'll be back tomorrow and we'll pick it up from here most definitely. The views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7 or the staff therein, but as solely expressed by the analyst Nicholas this morning. Okay, we'll be back to the music right now. I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey.
And I am Adeyemi. Thank you for joining us. We're back tomorrow.
Your Go with the Flow radio station.
From sunrise to midnight and beyond, one station keeps you locked in. No matter where you are, non-stop vibes, non-stop hits. This is Flow FM 92.7.
Good morning, Ilori. You know what time it is. Wake up with us and get your day started right.
We've got the hottest headlines, trending topics, and the music you love back to back.
You already know we keep it fun, fresh, and real. Mid-mornings with us, you won't want to miss it.
We bring the energy, the laughs, and of course the tunes that gets you through the day.
Afternoon on Flow FM is where the culture lives. Music, entertainment, and all the gist that you need.
And if it's trending, you already know we're talking about it.
Stay locked in, Lauren. It's Flow FM, baby.
The night's young, the vibes are right, and we are flowing past midnight. You ready to chill? Let's go.
Listen anytime, anywhere. Stream us live, call us, send us a WhatsApp message. We're just a tap away. Flow FM 92.7, your Go with the Flow radio station.